This recent headline recalls many others of a decade or more ago when reporters were covering the war in Iraq, many of them from the actual battlefields. Here is one of those reporters, Kevin Seitz, who is an embedded journalist, a job at the center of this week's assigned reading by Murphy. Murphy begins by explaining the tension between journalism's focus for the search for truth and its obligations to certain civic values. Journalists are often caught between two sometimes conflicting impulses. One, to tell the truth without being compromised by such civic values as serving one's country or fostering social solidarity, and two, to give readers something of value to act on that is more than just scientific truth. Murphy notes that telling the truth under such constraints requires several things. First, it requires sincerity, carefulness, accuracy, perseverance, and thoroughness, the so-called scientific values. But it also requires impartiality, humility, courage, and a willingness to follow the facts where they lead. Here we see more civic-minded values. But how can journalists balance their duties between truth-telling and the civic values imposed on them by patriotism? Murphy's answer is basically democratic patriotism, a duty to the institution of democracy, not to a particular democratic nation. In this way, reporters might be civic-minded without giving up their rights and responsibilities to disagree with the state. Now, this ability is important because, as Murphy says, quote, extreme patriotism is largely incompatible with democratic journalism, unquote. However, in the practical rough-and-tumble world of reporting, democratic journalism can severely challenge journalists in the field, particularly those in a military field of action, embedded journalists. Here is a short video of one of those Marines in the heat of battle in a battlefield in Fallujah in November of 2004.
The more I kill here, the less I got to worry about coming into my country.
Does it scare you at all, though? You have to break into a house like that and guys have guns pointed at you?
I don't have time to think about that shit. When I first got here, I was always worried about. My friend told me today, man, you were so worried about getting killed when you first got here. But now, I don't have time to think about that shit. You bust into a house. Just like today, I had people pointing AKs at me. And singing. I shot 2 people in less than 10 seconds. Just what you gotta do. This shit goes right out the window. Hey, dog, push. After that,
It's both shocking and humbling, I think, to see and hear a soldier living through the horror of war. If you can possibly pay attention to the other voice on the soundtrack, however, you might also be struck by the journalist, Kevin Seitz, who is there to record the sights and sounds of this soldier's life. Our shock probably can't compare, though, with Kevin Seitz, who lived and talked with Wold, and who probably owed his own safety to Wold's efforts during their interview. How difficult it must be to be an embedded journalist where both objectivity and compassion are required in the same moment. How difficult it must be to sustain one's will and ability in the face of a story's subsequent headlines like this. Marine's death ruled an accident. Military Sergeant William Wold's parents questioned the results of an autopsy that blamed medication. This is the same Wold we saw in the video. Thus, Embedded journalism is a very challenging profession. And so Murphy's recommendations for embedded journalism are as follows. Invest in non-embedded journalism. Provide context. Edit skeptically. Show the human face of war. Avoid cheerleading. Monitor embedded reporters. And be transparent. Certainly these are important for journalism, but they're also important for us. And they're important to all the men and women who serve in the armed forces, like Sergeant Wold.